Hello, students of St. Francis of Assisi. This is John Israel, founder and chief gratitude officer of Mr. Thank You. And I wanted to send this video to you for two reasons. Number one is to say thank you. Thank you so much for participating in the Mr. Thank You project. Our mission is to inspire 74 million thank you projects around the world. So whether you wrote one card or 5 cards or you're doing 30 cards this month, I just want to say thank you, because something that you don't realize is how impactful it is to somebody to be appreciated for what they do, whether it be a parent or a teacher or a family member or a friend. Sometimes we don't always feel good about our lives and mistakes that we've made, or we look at all the things that aren't going well in our lives. And when somebody takes the time to look at us and tell us who we are matters and who we are is valued and appreciated, it can not only make somebody's day, it can make somebody's year. So thank you for taking the time for all the letters that you wrote. Okay, second reason I'm making this video for you is to share a story. Now, what you don't know about me is I'm actually the product of 23 years of private Catholic education. So from kindergarten through 8th grade, I went to the same school with all the same friends. And then I got into high school and I went to a small private all-boys school, and then I went off to college in Washington State at a small school called Gonzaga University, another great school. And I spent my entire schooling career in the Catholic education system. And the thing that's interesting about that is that the life of Jesus and his followers was really about service. It was really about giving to others, and that wasn't really who I was most of my life. You know, I know you get to see me today as this guy who speaks on gratitude to people all over the world, but that's not who I was as a kid. You see, I'm the youngest of 5 children, and my parents sent all of us through private Catholic school, not because they could afford it, but because they valued education. So, which means I had to make a lot of sacrifices. So I never had really new things or nice things, and it was very frustrating because most of my friends, their families made a lot more money than we did. And so I was really left to compare what I didn't have with what everybody else did have. And I was always the poorest kid in the richest school, and I never felt like I fit in. And so I felt really frustrated and angry and entitled, like I should have what everybody else has. This isn't fair. And I'll never forget going to school one day and I saw this sign. Now, I went to school in San Diego, California, which is very close to the Mexico border. And I come to school one day and I see this sign that says, come to Mexico for a service trip. And what it turns out is they had our church had a relationship with another church in Rosarito, Mexico, and that had an orphanage. And the priests and the nuns took care of the orphans, and they had built a new building, and they needed some volunteers to come and paint the new building. So they invited students from our school to participate. So I raised my hand and said yes, and you have to understand, it wasn't because I had a heart for service. I had a requirement. You see, the school that I went to had a requirement of volunteer hours that we had to go through in order to graduate. And so that was really the main reason. I didn't particularly care about orphans or anything or service. I just was doing what I had to do. So I wake up early on Saturday morning, we all meet at the border, and we board this bus and we drive into Mexico about an hour to 2 hours in. And none of us really knew what we were getting ourselves into. We were all kind of in a similar boat. And we park at this orphanage, and you would have thought we were an NBA team getting off of that bus, because we get surrounded by 50 orphan children ages 4 to 8. And they were so excited to see us. Now, something you have to keep in mind is that these children have been abandoned. Either their parents or families didn't want them or couldn't take care of them, or their parents had passed away. So they really had no one taking care of them except for the volunteers from this church. And so us showing up just to be there was a big deal for these kids. And so we started off by eating breakfast together. And so we had little breakfast burritos, and we're sitting with all these kids at their lunch tables, and they were so excited, showing us all of their toys. And what was so interesting is you could tell that all of these toys were rejects from people like me who had moved on from something because it wasn't fun anymore. And they were beat up and tattered, but these kids were so excited to have something to play with. And I'll never forget, these two kids came up to me and they asked me if I want to play football, which is soccer. And so I said, okay, let's go play. And I go to this little dirt field with a half-flattened soccer ball and 2 rusty tin cans as a goal. And I'm playing soccer with these kids, and the whole time I'm thinking, like, this is a pretty janky soccer setup. I mean, this isn't even a legit ball. But that didn't matter to these kids. They were just excited that somebody was there to play with them. And I found this moment very interesting because there is this concept of a gratitude paradox. A gratitude paradox. A paradox is something that doesn't seem to make sense. So a gratitude paradox looks like this. How interesting is it that the people who have the least are the most grateful, and the people who have the most are the least grateful? Because here I was, this 14, 15-year-old kid, and I'm playing soccer with these kids, and I have both parents who have jobs, and I have a house that I get to live in, and I have warm clothes, albeit not the nicest, but I have something, and I've got a great school that I'm going to, but that I'm getting annoyed to do all the homework, and here I am, this kid who has seemingly a great life, who's totally unhappy, and here are these kids who have nothing but old, busted toys and nobody to play with them. And yet someone shows up and they can be grateful for that. And that moment did 2 things for me. Number 1 is it broke my heart to see how little that these kids lived with. And 2 is it filled my heart with joy and gratitude for everything I did have that I had been taking for granted. And that moment, everything changed for me. And I remember coming home from that trip and hugging my mom and dad a little tighter than I had before, and being more appreciative of the food that we had for dinner that wasn't ideally what I wanted, but was something. And I found myself comparing all the things I didn't have with my friends did have, but actually allowing myself to simply appreciate what was there. And I share this with you because that moment for me was a choice. A choice that I'm going to make happiness a priority, and to realize that that happiness isn't going to come externally from what I have, but really how I choose to appreciate what is there. And so we're entering a time of Thanksgiving, right? It's literally the Thanksgiving season. And I want to share this story with you because for the most part, it's just something where there's food and there's people. And I want to let you know that there's going to be a moment in a day when you don't get to spend that time with all those people. And some of them will pass away over the years. That's what occurs in life. And so my encouragement and my challenge for you this holiday season is, yes, write more thank you cards. Like, do that. But just take the time to appreciate what you have, who you have, and where you are. Because at the end of our life, we all say we want to be happy. We want to get a certain job. We want to marry a certain person. We want to do certain things because we think they're going to make us happy. And here's what I can tell you. If happiness is the finish line, gratitude is the starting line. So live today with gratitude for what you have, and you'll be happier no matter where you go. Take care, everybody. Happy holiday season.